Welcome, guys, to the AMA today. Primarily, I am Richard Sao, also known as Efficient on Keybase. I'll be moderating today, and we have a whole bunch of panelists that you see here who's going to answer any of your questions. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to take the questions you guys have, and I'm going to actually mark it live for the ones that you guys are going to that we're going to answer in real time, and then I'm going to put the screen to show what that question is and read it out and have whoever is going to answer. So
I'd suggest just reading the question. You're going to find it very hard to get the questions across in text.
Okay, cool.
And it's probably best to, like, if there's not actually additional pieces of the presentation, let's close the prezzo so people can actually see us.
Sounds like a good
on the
plan.
AMA.
Yeah, sounds.
But yeah,
cool.
on the teaching sessions for Chialisp, I'm totally with you that the panel looks better.
Right. Okay. Cool. So, question for Bram: would you speak to Lex? I don't know how to sound.
Friedman. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think I've actually run into him on Clubhouse. But yeah, no, I'd be happy to be on that show.
Yeah, I'm sure we will do that at the right time.
Okay. So let's see. I don't have any other questions in Zoom, so let's see if there's anybody.
There are people putting questions in the chat, which we'll ask them to put them instead in the Q&A. That's much easier for everybody to watch.
Yeah.
Also, I'll keep an eye on general.
Okay. Is the intro to Chialisp still relevant?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we are making new introductory materials. So some of our old introductory materials are varying amounts of out of date. But at any given time, we should have fairly up-to-date things on chialisp.com. We're going to keep that up to date moving forward, although we're about to put a whole bunch more stuff on it in just a few days.
Yeah. And there's also already quite a little bit that's been added since. So if you haven't looked at it recently, you can actually find quite a bit more.
And there's also additional new tooling that will actually be released at the same time. So you'll see that also as part of the video. So that will be helpful for a lot of people new to this. Okay, the next question is, what impact does the current US infrastructure bill have on Chia and pools in particular? Are farmers considered validators?
So farmers are definitely considered validators. In fact, farmers and miners are at first validators and people who get rewards for validating. That's actually like the core point. The infrastructure bill is a classic Washington Charlie Foxtrot. It was an attempt to take something that the IRS was already about to do, which is make it so that Coinbase and Gemini and others would have an actual regulatory structure to send the 1099s in that they were already doing because the Treasury Department has forced them to do it via the courts. The Wyden Amendment, which is more than the Wyden Amendment, but I'll refer to it as the Wyden Amendment, is the one we'd like to see because it makes it very, very clear that farmers or miners or software developers, anybody else, has nothing to do with this silly 1099 requirement. The other bill that got White House backing late last night, which was the weird part, makes it so that only proof of work is somehow avoided out. Bram and I were just literally talking about that before the AMA, and I believe that we would qualify for the proof of work exemption. You know, it is a kind of confusing point, but we are delayed proof of work in one way. So anyway, that's where it is. You know, there'll be more activity this weekend. It is minute to minute. There are also times that this may get fixed in the House reconciliation. Welcome to all of us having to learn more about Capitol Hill than any of us wanted to know. But this is not our first rodeo, and I am literally bringing some of our assets back to bear. We are big supporters of Coin Center, and they have taken point on this problem to date. Feel free to follow them, and we retweet them once in a while, both myself and
I'm quite certain that the people who are writing that amendment would have clarified that we qualify under their proof of work thing if they knew about us.
That's right. Yes, unfortunately, they are the same people who really hate how much power proof of work uses. So just a reminder, folks are asking questions. People are still asking in chat. There's a Q&A section, and it's much easier for us to follow your question there. But I'll read one. From Q&A or from chat. Is there something with how NFTs work with Chia pools that's different from, say, Bitcoin pooling?
Would have clarified that we qualify under their proof of work. Oh, oops. Sorry. Yeah, I heard my own voice echoed back there. So the thing with how to explain this? So with Bitcoin mining, There you don't. There you're committed to where your reward's going with every single block that you make. Every single attempt to make a block is pointing both partials and rewards towards a very specific thing. Bitcoin pooling protocol has a problem in that it's the pool that's actually making the blocks, which is a major issue. That because of that, well, and because Bitcoin's mining is actually pretty centralized, but partially because of that, it would take a very small cabal of pools to 51% attack Bitcoin. And it's really terrifying how easy that would be to do. But if Bitcoin had a pooling protocol where the actual miners made the blocks, not the pools, it would be more difficult for that to happen. In Chia, the actual space is extremely decentralized. And as a further layer of security on the actual decentralization, the pools don't make the blocks. The individual farmers make the blocks. So in order for this to work, it needs to be that the pool knows that they're actually getting the rewards that they're supposed to be getting, that you as the farmer can't go, hey, I just made a block. I'll just leave the pool and then claim the block for myself. So in order for the pool to be able to guarantee this, there needs to be some on-chain state that says that the rewards are currently going towards the pool. So we made it so that we're keeping that state in an NFT where the pool can audit what the current state of the NFT is and be guaranteed that they can claim the rewards from this at the same time as the farmer has the guarantee that if they decide that this pool is stiffing them, they can just leave the pool and either go solo or go to another pool. So that's why we have NFTs there. And we do, in fact, have a very nice pool protocol that's much better than the equivalent things in Bitcoin.
So the questioner followed up and said that he kind of forgot to say, as against this infrastructure bill. So I'm going to take that part of the question. Unfortunately, generally the way the regulatory environment is coming down is whether or not you have custody of someone else's assets or not. So to the extent that, the NFT is certainly more consumer friendly because people can kind of get out of a bad pool, it doesn't change the general view of the regulators that the pool owner is in custody of others' funds. So that is not necessarily a big differentiation between, our pooling and Bitcoin pooling from a regulatory point of view.
And on some level, this is somewhat reasonable. You are trusting a pool to not just stiff you. You should expect at some point that there will be actually laws that you have a responsibility as a pool under the eyes of the law to not stiff people, not just a reputation to preserve among the public. And hopefully the regulations are written in that way so that as long as you continue to not stiff people, you don't actually have any real problems.
We hope to help that be the right way.
So there's a couple YouTube questions. So one is, how are colored coins coming?
Getting colored coins back up and running is a very high priority for us. So we're working on that right now. At the moment, we were just discussing actually whether we have a prototype, whether colored coins are in a prototype form, which we can just turn on so that people can at least play with them on testnet right now. We think they are. We're a little concerned because they're not ready for prime time yet. I think it's kind of a scary thing where they're deployable on mainnet, but we don't want you to actually do it just yet because we don't have a real token standard yet. So since we did pool protocol, we now have a real singleton standard. So if you want to do anything that involves NFTs or singletons, we strongly recommend that you use that standard and then you'll probably be good. We don't have an equivalent standard for colored coins yet. And so we're working on building that now. So we'll probably have a prototype up in the coming days, and then like here's a standard that we stand behind and recommend that everyone who's actually doing tokenization do it using the standard. That'll be in a hopefully weeks time frame. We shall see how that goes.
Could be a month or two. Let's make sure everybody's on
Yeah,
that page.
yeah.
But
People get mad at ever saying dates, but do not construe anything that I say as a vague estimate as being a deadline, please.
Just for background's sake, back in testnet days, we did have an implementation of color coins running. So we have had it. It's on a hiatus for a while.
Yeah, I just wanted to underscore that. Some people are like, oh, you know, our copy paste to fork enabled color coins before us. And it's like, yeah, you turn on the color coins we don't want turned on because they're not ready for prime time. But yes, the color coins are already actually there, and everybody who's running Chia has colored coins in their software.
Another from YouTube is, any plans to increase profitability to the same level as Ethereum?
Farming hits market equilibrium. We do not control the price of Chia. We do not control our net space. We don't control how you budget your personal money in your life. So our expectation is long-term that purchasing storage to farm with will not be profitable. Now, when that happens, if it's happened already, is unclear. For a while, it was looking like NetSpace was growing so fast, it was ridiculous. Right now, but then NetSpace growth kind of slowed down a lot. But at a point where NetSpace is already very, very large. So projecting what's going to happen going forward, who knows? But we have a policy that we do not engage in any machinations whatsoever to mess with Chia's price or the NetSpace, aside from trying to make it easy for anyone who wants to increase net space. So we're trying to increase net space in some sense. So in that sense, although we're making it, the network is going to be much more secure, that runs somewhat counter to trying to make it so that extant farmers are making money, but our goal here is to make it so that the network is very decentralized and secure, not to make money for any one individual farmer. Of course, rewards aren't going down. If current farmers are making less, it's because someone else is making more. Farming rewards are staying what they are, but we are not manipulating the price of Chia or anything like that. We did push out pooling protocol, so I think we did people a favor that way.
Now, I do want to make sure that the obvious is stated, which is that we are out working on building applications in the real world that will add demand for Chia coins to do real things. We were 21 people on May 3rd when transactions started, and I believe we are 45 or 46 as of today, and that is 94 days later. So.
Okay, a couple from the Zoom Q&A. When do you expect transaction fees, and how do you think it will affect Chia?
Transaction fees are going to be starting when blocks are consistently really full. We're hoping we're not going to get there quite too fast because we're still improving our block validation software to make it faster so that low-end machines can handle it no problem. But we'll see. There's some amount of pressure happening just from pools handing out rewards right now, which is kind of a good way for blocks to fill up, because if there starts being transaction fee pressure because of that, pools can just make their rewards less frequent. And that's very easy to do to handle that situation. Yeah, well, it's the same answer as Bitcoin. Like there's this extant specific supply of transaction space that's not changing in value. When the demand for it gets high enough, its price goes up. People can adjust by shuffling how much they need and use up, only the amount of resource that they're willing to pay for at current prices.
Great.
I'd add on that just that, like, the whole point of getting an adopted blockchain at scale is that the fee market should be causing the right behavior all the way around. So in fact, you want a fee market. You want the fee market to incent people to only put the medium to large value transactions on layer 1 and use layer 2 to net settle and to time settle the smaller transactions that would otherwise be expensive.
Right, and aware of that.
Crosstalk, JM?
I would say, yeah, it may be a long way away from that. Is what we're saying. Yeah, I still have not sent a fee that is more than 0 besides the very first transaction on May 3rd. So.
And I was going to say pool operators are going to be aware of the fee, and so they'll try to work to make sure that doesn't happen. So by limiting themselves.
Okay, with Chialisp being a decentralized with Chialisp, can a decentralized pooling system, pooling payment system be possible?
Can you make a virtual automatic pool?
Probably not, sort of. The problem is that the evaluation of the partials. The evaluation of the partials that are getting sent in needs to be done by something somewhere. And it's like really, it would be really expensive to write things that actually evaluated partials in Chialisp. That would not scale super well.
Yeah, it's the on-chain versus off-chain problem that there's so much more compute power off-chain.
Okay, just for those on Zoom, if you want to ask a question, I'm not looking chat anymore. I'm just looking at the Q&A box. So please submit via Q&A box. From Keybase General, question is, do you see compliance issues potentially affecting layer 2 solutions for Chia?
We certainly keep an eye on it. To date, the Lightning Network has kind of gone first, and Coin Center actually has a really nice thing on Lightning Network and what is and isn't a money transmitter, and all those sorts of things. The good news though is that like most of the layer 2 types of solutions, either you're already working with somebody who fits that regulatory scheme. In other words, like if you're working with a digital money exchange, they are going to already be regulated as a digital money exchange, and so to the extent that they're using a layer 2 net settlement, it's the same thing. If you're working with a FINRA broker-dealer for tokenized equity, they're already a FINRA broker-dealer, and so they've got pretty standard rules about how they would aggregate transactions and then submit them all. So from that perspective, we think that those are very tractable problems, but we could certainly keep an eye out in Capitol Hill, New York State, and California.
Okay, from YouTube, what would be the next priority after color coins?
We're very interested in making really good custody solutions. We really want to we want to dog food that for our own internal custody solution for the pre-farm. And we're going to be making the system that we build for that available to others to use as well, because being able to custody well is something that Chia does very well and is super important.
Cool. For JM, any updated predictions on netspace growth? I think one prediction in a previous AMA was 100 exabytes by the year end.
So if you guys saw, we have a link to the IDC report right on chia.net on the page. We actually bought the rights to that report, but they say something very interesting in that report, which kind of Bram alluded to, which is the average desktop user is only using 30% of their internal storage, and their average external hard drive is only using 23%. And there's about 500 exabytes of underutilized storage space just sitting out there in the world. So the question is, how many of those people want to be Chia farmers? How many of them already are? If you guys heard the earnings reports from WD and Seagate this cycle, there was a large amount of storage capacity that was bought solely for the purpose of Chia farming. And that was due to the market conditions in the beginning of the year, price being high, net space being low, and this kind of perfect storm to create this very profitable farming ROI. We likely will not see a scenario like that where we see a huge jump in net space like that, unless the Chia price rapidly raises in a very short amount of time. So they're going to be intimately intertwined. But if we see very steady growth, we very well may see 2x growth on the net space between now and the end of the year. But your guess is as good as mine. That I happen to be in the camp of very similar to the IDC outlook, which is we'll see very slow, steady price increase. We'll see very slow, steady net space increase.
I do want to add, last AMA, I said that I suspected it'd be 50 would be where we're at the end of August. And based on the amount of replotting that's happened with the portable plots, I want to revise that to like 44 and a half.
Because you knew I'd say 45, darn you.
Okay, great. Next question. How can you tackle color coins and so on when the node, wallet, and farmer are not ready for prime time themselves? What's your plan to fix current issues and to make it user-friendly? Users are utterly confused about how the wallet and pooled farming work. Also, the GUI is borderline unusable. I'm reading it straight out.
Anonymous attendee for the win.
Yes.
We actually have a bunch of people, so we can have people working on multiple things at once right now. The people working on Chialisp stuff have different expertise than people working on more basic UX and protocol things. We know we have a lot of improvements to be had in our basic functionality, and we're working on it.
I'd also add that it's important to know that when you bring on new developers, they aren't immediately useful for up to 3 to 4 weeks. So there's kind of a layering system, and so you have not yet seen the pace that the current team is likely to add new features and fix things.
I am finding it funny. Somebody posted a picture on Reddit of like, somebody farming like the 50 different forks of Chia on one machine with all the logos, and that same crappy UI is the exact same one everybody has forked and is used. So it is usable. So
about 450,000 full nodes out there to say that works pretty well.
Yeah, these forks aren't really adding much of any development.
I think the better word is copy pasta.
Okay, I'm going to go switch to YouTube for a couple. If it's okay to ask in this AMA, any news on Chia Network going public?
We continue to be on an accelerated timeline. Market conditions are going to drive the final outcomes here, and market conditions are a little less wonderful than they were when we first listed, but not so bad actually. But again, it's going to be very market driven, and there's no significant blockers have shown up to being able to do that. So that's about all I can really say.
Okay, and then question about the business. What marketing plans do you have? Relying on word of mouth only keeps us in the minds of crypto users, not so much with the rest of the public who frown on crypto.
So the issue here in this space is that everyone's promised the moon and curing cancer for every blockchain out there already. So we're not going to do that. I want to remind everybody who was telling us that we should be marketing that 30 exabytes later, we said to you that it would be virally very large, and it has been. What we're currently out doing is getting actual, tangible, real use cases with real enterprises and real government actors that have problems they need to solve. Those are the things we're going to market. We're going to market them after they're real and signed and working. So this is not a short-term play. This is not a pump. If you wanted that, you should go find Chia Doge. Oh, wait, it's going to be there very long. Anyway, point being that we are very focused on real applications, and in fact, are often saying no to some applications that we think are sprinkling blockchain on an idea.
Yeah, clearly, if you don't think there's marketing, you guys haven't followed me on LinkedIn. We certainly have a lot of inbound, and like as Gene said, the netspace growth has caused a lot of interest from the storage industry. So that's well outside of crypto. And most of the people I talk to in the storage industry about Chia are not crypto enthusiasts or not crypto people. They are storage people and PC people and server people, and they're learning a lot about crypto through Chia, which is really cool.
Right. Both of the CEOs of Western Digital and Seagate in the last 2 weeks have actually specifically addressed the fact that Chia has had material impact on their outcomes on their analyst calls. So Wall Street absolutely knows about Chia.
Great. Okay. I'm seeing more and more NFT games coming out. Chia Network seems great for this market. Has the team been approached, or do you know of any teams teams working on NFT game built on Chia Network? I'm going to say, just so on the record, I come from the gaming industry. I would love to see this, but I'll let more appropriate people talk about what the potential is.
We have, we're a little bit swamped at the moment with things to do. So NFTs are definitely on our roadmap. There are some cool features that we've discussed building for them, starting with the very basic one that over-the-counter trading of NFTs not through an exchange will be supported. However, NFT isn't that much more than just a singleton, and we got singletons working well for our pool protocol. But we also have colored coins. We also have custody solutions. We're trying to get there as quickly as possible. We have a lot of stuff to do around here.
So I'll take another question that turns out for me, but I'll go ahead and do it. Any upcoming plans to pre-farm or nothing until IPO? We were not in any way changed what our current plans are for the pre-farm. We have not had a reason to lend it yet. We still keep the option open of lending some of it for actual use. But other than that, we don't expect to do much with the pre-farm until IPO. Caveat that as we roll out the new custody solutions, we are likely to change how the pre-farm is custodied. We will give folks a heads up that there'll be a time period in which we'll do that. We will, for security reasons, not specify specifically when we'll do that. But then once it's complete, we will, probably put a blog post or maybe even an anime to explain how we change the pre-farms custody situation, and to talk about the custody and control stuff that we're using for ourselves, which we think would be really good for YouTube.
So a little bit related, somebody asked about when are we going to get listed in Binance? And then another one asked about they missed the KuCoin news. Did the exchange approach us? Are we actively seeking exchanges? I figure I'd group it all together for you.
So here's what I can say, and here's what I can't say. What I can't say is I can't really address individual exchanges, other than I would say, sometimes external forces cause them to have different priorities. We are quite open with all the exchanges, and we're willing to support them. I don't remember whether we supported KuCoin or not. I think we might have. But regardless, we do have people actually adding us without chatting with us. They have no need to necessarily interact. The software is all there, and they can go forward. But we also stand ready to answer questions and help people get over the line. I kind of expect us to have a slow, steady trickle of additional new exchanges. And, but for being a Washington State resident and a New York State resident, right now you have at least Uphold, Crypto.com. Gadio actually works well for Americans, believe it or not, as long as you're okay with KYC. So there are real options to acquire, buy, sell, trade.
Okay. For Bram, you mentioned on Twitter that pool difficulty set to 1 is incompetent. Anything actually wrong with that if pool servers can handle it with the custom code?
It's just a completely unnecessary amount of load, both on the pool and for everyone farming to the pool. It's potentially a handleable amount, but a totally unnecessary, silly amount.
Right. Partials are supposed to tell the pool operator to give them an indication of whether they're really farming and to give them an indication of how much storage space they have. Why would you just bombard the farmer and increase the power utilization of the farmer unnecessarily if you don't have to? If you can ascertain that information about how much storage capacity the farmer has with less partials, then you should do that. And that's what setting the difficulty higher does.
Jim, while you're talking, any updates on the plotting competition?
Gene, we do have the team's near-term priorities are this Chialisp training that they're doing next week. So the team's been kind of all hands on deck for the last couple of weeks getting ready for this, unfortunately. So I have approached the people that have been working on the community plotters, at least to get everybody ready. And the good folks on the phone here and I are going to chat on what we anticipate the competition to look like as far as metrics and goals. The plotting competition that we had originally thought about, it might be challenging with community plotters that are out there as far as making byte for byte identical outputs of the plots to judge against and on a single system, because the plotting, the resources required to tune for different plotters are very different. Like you have BladeBit that's very DRAM optimized. You have Mad Max that's kind of medium DRAM optimized. You have other plotters, that require different kind of resource utilization, and that's very hard to do on a single system for a competition. So we're thinking about what that looks like.
Yeah, we also have a couple enhancements coming. We've been looking at how to get Mad Max directly in as an option inside the Chia plotter itself, as well as adding some more resources there and even potentially shrinking the size of the average output file. And that might even include a old plot shrinker, so you can just run that on your existing plots and shrink them down too.
Yeah,
we apologize to the OCD.
Yeah, we're working on some improvements that the community has not. So,
but once we get past those couple things, there's an active conversation about what a plotting King of the Hill kind of contest would look like. It's just the bifurcation of the kind of types of plotter make it so that any one kind of metric to be good and clean and judgeable by everybody is a bit challenging, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think there's a place for a plotter that's very efficient as far as energy utilization for plotting output. I think there's a plotting competition for what the total amount of TIB per day per system is. I think there's one for the lowest cost, so highest number of terabytes for lowest amount of dollar for a system. There's some really cool stuff, but yeah, we'll have to think through how we actually stage the competition.
Okay, a technical question. It seems the only way to persist states is via the puzzle hash. For contracts that have large possible states, it requires all parties who want to interact know both puzzle and current internal state.
There are a few ways of going about dealing with the state of a smart coin. The one thing in the post that I wrote about how you would future roadmap for DeFi in Chia, that one talks about if you have an AMM, a neat trick you can do there is actually make it so it spawns its own new smart coin. So when you have a deposit within this AMM, your holdings are actually represented by another colored coin that you yourself custody, and that is offloading the AMM's responsibility for remembering a lot of stuff to the blockchain generally and to everyone who's custodying on it. So there are different approaches that you can take. That seems to hint that in general, you probably don't want to have one smart coin that has a whole lot of information. You want to have like delegated pieces of information and capabilities that different things have, and they're responsible for managing those. But it's all very dependent on exactly what it is that you're doing. But having everything be hidden behind a Merkleization in the puzzle is actually generally speaking very good because it dramatically lowers load on full nodes. That's a big part of why it is that you can run a full node on such a low end system instead of needing like Infura to do anything. But it is possible to make it so that even if you're following the like heavyweight model where you have a big opaque like database that you're holding within your smart coin, you can make it so that updates to it are given, proofs of the path from the root to the particular things you're updating, and you're just changing those. So some intelligence can be applied here in general.
Cool. Something related is, what killer apps are you hoping to see developed?
Well, in terms of stuff we want to have happen, it's a whole ecosystem, right? So we've got right now pools, a whole lot more wallets with different custody arrangements, stable coins. We're working towards getting tokenization of carbon credit markets to happen related to stable coins as well, decentralized exchange, decentralized exchange in terms of there being over the counter and in terms of there being non-custodial exchanges, including AMMs that are on that. There's a long list of things.
Yeah, and look, there's something I want to point out that's hiding in that answer, which is, people are like, why isn't your wallet the best? And the answer is, I expect our wallet will never be the best. We would like to see the community build much better wallets because they can focus on iOS and Android and usability and take the custody and control stuff that we're going to build in Chialisp, the things that we're going to show you how to do, and then, let you go out and create the very best user experience.
Yeah, we want there to be a whole ecosystem of all these things where we are an enabler of the ecosystem, but run not very much of the ecosystem at all ourselves.
And there are a lot of devs out there making those things now. I've seen some of the in-progress work that they're doing, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that we're a few weeks, a few months from seeing across all kinds of tools.
Software takes time.
Good software takes
time. Software takes time, yes. Vaporware can be cranked out very, very quickly.
We've seen a lot in this sector.
Yeah.
Okay, back to some Q&A from the Zoom participants. Since adoption is critical in the long-term success of Chia, what type of applications are currently being worked on? And how do these compete with other use cases in other cryptocurrencies, aside from the value proposition of a different consensus algorithm?
Yeah, so I kind of feel like we answered this before. Our immediate top priorities are number one, colored coins and enabling extremely liquid exchange of tokens. So Over-the-counter exchange, truly decentralized exchange between any two tokenized things, and getting real exchanges that support that, that do bookmaking up and running, and also getting tokenization to happen in terms of stable coins being the top priority, and then carbon credit markets being next up on the list, and then maybe eventually things like wrapped Ethereum and wrapped Bitcoin and wrapped equities of various kinds. And then also working on improving custody solutions as well. We're going to dog food that for the pre-farm. And yeah, the idea is we want it to be possible to self-custody in an entirely reasonable and extremely secure way.
I'd add that a sort of part of that question was, you know, we think that our smart contracting environment will not have the same levels of miner extractable value because everything goes through in parallel. You know, Bram put up a nice blog post talking about that. Also, you know, our native exchange as a capability, the partial offer capability, is something no one else has. It's a significant improvement on kind of the state of the art about how one creates an exchange, either centralized, decentralized, or something in between. But the final one is that when you're done writing Chialisp, you can actually go get an accounting audit on SSAE 18, which is a whole new concept in this space and starts to unlock billions and trillions of dollars flowing through Chialisp instead of it being fill in the blank swap loses $18 million this morning.
Cool. Should we be worried about the pre-mine? I know it's always been in the back of mind since it can either raise or kill the overall market. It also prevents Chia from being listed on Coinbase, which would no longer be an issue once they are sold or locked.
I'm going to start with the part that's a complete fabrication. It has nothing to do with whether listed on Coinbase. Now, go ahead, Bram.
The pre-farm we're sitting on. We're not selling it. We're not doing much of anything with it. We're sitting on it. We have raised dollars as a company, and that's what we're living off of here, paying developers out of. And yeah, we are in the future, when we make a really nice custody solution for the pre-farm, we are actually going to make it possible for anyone out there who wants to audit that we are pre-farming the way we said we are. And that will have, in addition to our legal processes that where there's hoops that have to be jumped through in order for the pre-farm to be moved, there will be technical hurdles to it as well, where there will be some kind of lockup period where if we do want to move anything out of the pre-farm, it will have to move to a state where it will have to sit in for some period of time and then actually be liquid at the end of that. And it will be auditable by anyone who wants to verify, yes, in fact, this is technically enforced. We physically cannot move things out of the pre-farm faster than at a certain rate.
There's actually been a question mentioned in both YouTube chat and Zoom chat several times, asking what we actually mean about custody, since we've mentioned it several times. Do you want to kind of explain to people what we mean by custody?
Yeah, custody has to do with how you're holding onto your stuff, like all the security around what you have. So Bitcoin feels like carrying around just like a suitcase full of $100 bills. It's kind of terrifying that way. Custody solutions include things like a rate limited wallet would be a good example of this, where you have your wallet that you can spend at a certain rate, but you're worried that someone might steal your wallet physically. So what you do is you have another key that you keep in a safe deposit box or something somewhere, so some very secure place, maybe split among a few friends of yours, something like that. And in the event of your hardware wallet getting lost or stolen, you can go back and get the other key, which is not subject to the rate limit, and yank all the funds out of it. And you're only out the amount that the thief was able to extract in the intervening time. So that's a very nice feature for it to have. Related to that, there's actually our DIDs have another custody solution where you say, here are my friends, and this set of these subsets of my friends are capable of coming together and claiming control of my wallet in the event that my access to it is lost or I die or something like that. This is an improvement over the DIDs that other things have, because those are usually based off of partials, meaning that if the people you gave the partials to themselves have to go through a recovery they can't participate in your recovery. Our DIDs are based off of the identity, not off of any particular partial, so that even if these counterparties have themselves had to go through a key recovery, they can still participate in your key recovery, your account recovery after the fact. There's a bunch of other variants on it in terms of, like I said, for our custody, making it so that when you pull stuff out, there's a period of time that needs to pass for it to actually get spent. But during that time, it can actually be called back. So if someone hacks you and starts trying to pull something out, you can stop them. That's another variant with different trade-offs. There's a few other tricks that can happen. These all generally fall under the category of custody. And obviously multi-sig is like a basic building block as well.
But they're going to make self-custodying the stuff so much easier. Anyway.
Okay. Are there...
I was just say like that funny. There was that article like that one of the Bitcoin whale billionaire guys that was like 41 years old that wound up washed on a shore dead. Like that's like, I was just thinking about that. Like I wonder how we custodied it. A lot of people didn't plan on dying and having backup plans set up and stuff. So having these things built into the protocol instead of like having to have a very sophisticated, engineer be able to rebuild the wallets and multi-sig stuff is going to be really powerful.
Are there any common misconceptions about Chia that you would like to address?
We eat SSDs for lunch.
Yeah, that is.
Where's one? I don't have one in my office handy, but
to clarify, because people like misquoting, the thing that Gene said was an example of a misconception that people have, because he was asked for a misconception.
Exactly, that was the misconception.
Yes.
Storage JM just put up a nice blog post talking about how like warranty returns are not higher. There's been only a small uptick in SSD purchases, and if anything, we caused much nicer SSDs to come out in the market, which we're kind of excited about. So, and then the one that really gets my goat though is that somehow we're hurting hard drives, and it's like, I'm sorry, even if you plot correctly, we're not hurting hard drives.
That's a good. I've seen a lot of very poor journalism, just basically taking one person that wrote that we wear at SSDs, and then somebody extrapolating that to Chia instantly destroys hard drives. And there were some really bad translations on some of these French sites for some of these. I think there was like a blog post on Scaleway, and then some other, one of these French cloud guys that was like, do not use Chia on our cloud. It will destroy our hard drives. And it's like, no, it will not destroy your hard drive. You will not have a very fun time farming economically in the cloud versus people that have, storage at their own house available for a marginal cost of zero. You will not be have fun time competing with them, but no, you will not destroy the hard drives in the cloud.
Some of the new SSDs coming out are really great. It's like if you actually are doing a lot of multimedia processing, or it turns out something I didn't know about, if you're compiling code a lot, hard drives are designed generally for like sudden spikes in load, and then they kind of copy stuff to their slower SSD stuff, and compilation doesn't work that way. So actually these newer SSDs, like your compile times, if you routinely compile massive things, will be like twice as fast under some circumstances.
Part of that also comes from another misconception that isn't really a Chia misconception, but feeds into this, is the misconception that like the terabyte write limit on an SSD is like you hit 0% and the drive just stops working at the next bit you get to, when that's not the case at all.
Yeah, it's very drive dependent and very dependent on what the scenario was when the drive wore out, and the firmware on a data center drive, when an Intel drive gets to 0% used, and the smart percentage actually tracks the program array cycles of the NAND correctly, the drive will go into a read-only mode and make sure that the customer can get the data off safely. A consumer drive, some people want to just run these things till they explode, and they start throwing smart errors and uncorrectables, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, the drive-to-drive behavior is very, very different.
Okay. Pre-launch, there was a mention of rewarding every farmers with airdrop or bonus reward periods. For example, Christmas. Is this still the plan?
No airdrops, no ICOs.
Yeah, we do not have any plans to do something like that. That's a hypothetical thing that we wanted to make sure that our on-chain programming environment could support. And it can, which is why we're able to have a real pooling protocol. But we don't have plans to do those specific things.
Well, I will add, we have not ruled out potentially doing specific farmer rewards, but we want to wait until after the IPO is complete because it otherwise would complicate the story about having never sold Chia.
Do you consider to be part of the Amazon crypto payment? Would you consider to be part of the Amazon crypto payment, I guess?
Anyone who wants to use Chia as payments infrastructure, that's great. We're still building up our tech, so I don't want to oversell whether we're ready to start doing something tomorrow. But definitely that would be great to land on in the future.
And we certainly have a good partnership and customership with Amazon as it sits today.
Are you planning to do anything with Ledger support?
So Ledger has implemented BLS signatures in what's called G1, which is kind of the other way of doing BLS signatures. They'd originally told us that they'd be able to get there about now, but it looks like it's going to be at least a quarter later. We're tracking that closely and are hoping that the Nano X can get the BLS in G2 shortly.
There are a lot of Chia forks. We found few forks such as Flax grown well, and we did find few people of Chia that were good contributors to Flaxnet. What's your attitude about these forks? Does Chia welcome and allow Chia folks to be gathered together, being bigger, greener blockchain ecosystem? I don't understand the other part, but what do you think about forks?
We can't really stop forks. Right now, the forks aren't really contributing much of anything. So I'm not excited about them or anything like that. But I mean, it would be silly for us to say, oh, you can't do that. I mean, our stuff is open source. So
yeah, we do support co-farming. So I mean, we try to support our farmers as best we can. So in the case that they can farm these forks, they can do that.
Now, I will add two things. You may not call your fork anything that has the word Chia in it. If you do, we will take your domain. So let me be very clear. You cannot have a blockchain that has the word Chia in it. Now, on the flip side, if you're really interested in Chia and you put in some interesting PRs, you probably can get a job with us. So to the extent you're interested in kind of pitching in and growing things, we're still hiring.
To be fair, we'll take your domain name after we ask you first to politely please take Chia out of your name. We start with that approach.
What he said.
I'll email you first and ask nicely. And then if you don't, then Gene does that.
Okay, Gene spoke about real-world application for Chialisp. Can you give an example of that? Would tokenization with selling physical products be a good utilization of Chia network?
Supply chain, people talk about supply chain management on chain a lot. It's not generally such a good idea, mostly because the blockchain doesn't have all that much capacity. So if you want to do like supply chain management of like an entire cargo ship with many, many tons of cargo on it that's going overseas and some oracle says when it's arrived, then you can definitely track that on chain because that's an extremely high value transaction. But even small supply chain management systems have an amount of stuff happening that would very rapidly overload even our relatively large blockchain. So that's kind of the caveat about that kind of stuff.
But like a good application is the one we talk about with carbon credits. So today there is no global carbon credit market that's cross-country. And so being able to issue your carbon credit when you're doing something that is carbon sequestration or reforestation, issuing that on chain and then having that ton of carbon be tradable across California, Poland, Europe, Japan, you're starting to talk about getting out the regional price differences between carbon, which is a bad thing. So some places are kind of overpricing carbon and some places are underpricing carbon. So being able to actually create a functioning carbon market where those people who do have to create carbon, like Shell or others, can actually go into a market and have some confidence that those are real carbon credits that really did sequester carbon and that they can then buy those and retire them in a way that's totally provable. That is exactly the kind of real world application that we're after.
Okay. How do you feel about certain pools moving the farming node to the pool with their own farming software away from individual farmer? Can anything be done to prevent it if you feel that would be necessary?
We can't prevent it. It's not, generally speaking, a good idea. If someone's like a super small farmer who has exactly one plot, then sure, fine. Running a farmer for them is good. For the most part, I think we should improve the UX on this. You can, even as a very small farmer, just use some random full node that's out there to make blocks for you, and full nodes will provide this service. But I think that might be an undocumented feature that we should make clearer.
I actually believe we have something on Trello to make that even easier.
Yeah.
Okay, is there room or plan for optimizing storage utilization in the Chia deployment, such as the data deduplication to reduce the data storage? Any potential benefits?
I would change the question. I think he's asking, can we shrink the plots?
Oh,
Yeah, no dedupe, no compression.
Well, yes, we can shrink the plots a little. No, they can't be deduped like they think they can.
yeah, we're never doing any like Filecoin type functionality. It is possible. This is kind of interesting. If you are running RAID, it is in principle possible to make it so that you are farming off of your extra data, even while your RAID is running, at the expense of, if you do get a failure, you're going to have to take the drive offline until you finish fixing it. That's an interesting thing that could be done.
Okay.
Now, we do have some interesting dedupe on chain.
Do anybody want to elaborate that, or?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay.
Coming soon to Chialisp training near you.
Yes. When it comes to transaction obfuscation, do you think Chia will ever support something like mimblewimble as it's being applied to Litecoin at the moment?
That kind of stuff is way out there. We're just working on really, really basic Chialisp programming and its implications. We're keeping an eye on the existing tech in terms of snarks and everything, which is useful both potentially for privacy and also for scaling, because you can make it so that you can have an extremely large, complex, expensive program, but do all of its running off chain and then just prove what it did on chain. So that it could allow for much, much more big, expensive programs to be run sort of on chain, in the sense that someone just kind of ran them off chain and proved to the chain what actually happened. But that's really far out there. We're keeping an eye on that tech, but it's going to be quite a while before we might even try to support any of it.
But that tech may be a path to being able to do an on-chain, all on-chain pool.
Okay. Have official pooling protocol lived up to your expectation in terms of number of pools, pool net space? Any suggestion for pool operators out there?
I'd like for farmers to please switch over faster, more, and to a wider distribution of pools, please. The pools are, for the most part, doing well and trying to differentiate themselves for the most part in good ways.
Yeah, I mean, there's more farmers in Space Pool alone than there are nodes on most every other blockchain. So yeah, these pools have been widely successful.
Yeah, and remember, there's kind of a magic number for what pool you want to be into, and once a pool raises about 6 or 7 exabytes, petabytes, you're in the right place for a daily win.
Yeah, the threshold for size of pool for it to be viable is much, much smaller in Chia than in Bitcoin, just because Bitcoin has about 100 reward events per day, and we have about 5,000.
This is a fun one. How's the pay at Chia Network? What's the future equity?
I think Bram and I shouldn't answer this question and let y'all answer this question.
Good enough to pull me away from a telecom that paid with golden handcuffs. Chia has been very good to me.
Yeah,
nobody's left because of that.
Yeah, as someone who's both just joined recently and also is hiring people, very competitive pay, very good pay, not irresponsible pay, just good pay. It's pretty common knowledge that Chia's raised a lot of money. Obviously, that stuff's in the news, and a lot of that's going towards hiring really good talent and paying what they are worth, which is the important part. I had a 15-year career in the video game industry that I was not looking to leave anytime soon, and I was at a tech company. I was like one of the first employees, and I had golden handcuffs, and I was in a really happy project doing some really amazing stuff. And she is just too competitive. I couldn't say no. I told my CEO why I was leaving. He was like, yeah, go. I'll be mad at you if you don't. So yeah, Chia takes very good care of their staff.
Can confirm.
I can confirm as well. And I was working on my own startup, so you got to have something really compelling for you to leave your own idea to go to something bigger.
Bram, there was a question about your artwork. So
yeah. Somebody asked what this is. This is a kinetic art sculpture. I got it from a place called Carved Lake Art. It's very affordable. I'm quite happy with it.
150-ish, right?
Yeah, I think that might have been the sale price, but yeah, it's quite affordable.
Okay. Common misconception want to clarify. Closest or fastest proof wins. Instead, there can be multiple winners per block. Is this true?
Yeah, so simplifications are not lies. This is something I had to learn when doing many interviews where people were non-technical people were asking me technical questions. Sometimes you have to simplify a little bit. So technically speaking, there can be multiple, not quite unlimited for sanity reasons, but there can be quite a few winners in a short period of time. For Chia specifically to make it so that they're not competing for each other. In the short run, two different winners don't have to like duke it out to decide which one of them wins. So there's no incentive for them to try and orphan each other immediately. That's a highly technical thing. It's really, really good though. It's part of the new consensus algorithm that I spent most of last year working on myself.
And I'll end it with a fun question. For Bram, how is puzzle making going? Any Chia-themed puzzles we can expect?
Puzzle making, actually, I was doing some Sudoku for a while. Recently, some of my mechanical puzzle projects have really panned out. So there is this thing here, which is I'm not sure how to describe what this does, but this is
it is an infernal device, and I love it.
Yeah, this sort of thing. This is a binary bird that has no cage, just the pieces lock into each other. I invented that recently. So I had a few things pan out recently. Not so much, all the stuff I do is very abstract in terms of how it works. So it's hard to theme it. So I don't know, maybe I could make some stuff green and call it Chia-themed.
Well, that's about it for today. Thank you guys for joining, and thank you for your patience of me learning how to do the stream for the first time. Appreciate everybody's patience on that. Somebody asked, why am I having this fake background? I just moved. There's a big mess, and my camera's pointed to a hallway, and wouldn't want you to see my daughter coming, in whatever wear she decides to wear today. So I will probably find a better solution in the near future. But thanks again for everybody for coming, and we'll try to do this again very soon. So have a good time, guys.
Happy farming.
Happy Friday, guys.
Farming.